9 proofs of evolution. So we'll get through a couple here, and this will be a good means to see, okay, what do they got? What is the best they have to offer? This is from a popular evolutionist channel, Rationality Rules. Quite a bit of views, so worth engaging. Now, I will say right off the bat, before he gets into his evidence, his so-called proof, he does what we're so familiar with. He's going to start off by saying every single branch of science supports evolution. He just lists them all off: biology, paleontology, geology, and they like to do that. It's kind of a slap and run in a way.
Right.
And so let's start here. You'll see that we'll give some brief comments and we'll get into the proof.
Before we even begin this video, a simple but necessary clarification must be made. People very often confuse abiogenesis with evolution when they shouldn't. Abiogenesis is the study of how life first emerged from non-living matter, and it's not discussed within this video. Evolution, on the other hand, is the study of biological change over time, and it is the star of this video. Now, with that...
Okay, you know what's funny? They're the ones that have called it over the years, especially in their science textbooks, organic evolution. But now that they have absolutely no evidence for organic evolution, now they have to say, well, this is abiogenesis. It's completely separate from biological evolution. What are your thoughts on that?
This is why they skip it, because it's embarrassing to them. It is an essential part of their religion. Where did life come from? They want to skip all that and start with living things already, which is what he's already trying to do. That's why I said number 4 of my chart for the different definitions of evolution is organic evolution. The textbooks teach it. Let's see. Earth began as a hot ball of rock, and it cooled down. And atheist R. N. Nelson said, no evolutionist ever believed we came from a rock. Yeah, they do. Earth began as a hot ball of rock, straight from the textbook. And 3.9 billion years ago, it cooled down enough and began to rain on the planet. And the oceans appeared. And 3.5 billion years ago, scientists believe the first living organisms appeared. This is part of your religion. I know you're embarrassed about it. You should be. You got suckered into believing something really, really dumb. But you want to skip this part. Earth was a hot ball of very, very hot liquid, okay? Earth reached a temperature of 2,000 degrees centigrade. This is straight from the textbooks or internet. Colleges teach this kind of stuff. Earth formed 4.54 billion years ago, and it was all a hot melted rock. And then millions of years of rains created the oceans. And somewhere in the oceans, the progress from a complex chemical soup to a living organism is very slow. It is part of the theory, guys. I'm sorry, we're not going to skip that and go on, all right? Let's see. The Earth started as a hot, viscous ball of rock, and water was trapped inside, and it rained on the rocks. Yale University, how Earth became habitable. Earth transformed itself. Yeah, okay. How Earth transformed itself from a fiery, carbon-clouded ball of rocks into a planet capable of sustaining life. Their theory, I could show you 100 examples of this. They do believe we came from a rock, and it rained on the rocks for millions of years and turned them into soup, and the soup came alive. Don't skip over that part, holy Kool-Aid. You don't have a theory if you don't have a common sense theory if you can't explain where did time come from? Where did matter come from? Where did all the energy in the universe come from? Where did space come from? They say there was a big bang. What exploded? And what did it explode into? And where was the energy for that explosion? You don't have any answers to any of those. That's why I say cosmic evolution, chemical evolution, and organic evolution are essential. But they say 3.9 billion years ago, the oceans formed, and hot soup was the origin of life. Primordial soup, where life began on Earth, was hot and not cold. Whoa. Primordial soup. This is what they teach. And Holy Kool-Aid wants to skip that. Even if we let him skip it for the sake of the argument, what he wants to argue is variations, microevolution, is evidence of macroevolution. That still can be easily debunked. But just point out for the jury, Your Honor, he skips the first 4 very essential steps. You don't have a theory at all until you can answer those. Okay? Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, they still have, you're muted, Donny. You still have to have this fundamental particle, whatever that is, that evolved. And so unless they want to say that it's irreducibly complex, someone like Michael Behe would love that.
Yeah.
I think we love that.
Well, they want to slip one by. and we're not going to let them slap and run. If they're going to make a claim or an assertion, then we're going to engage it. So I appreciate that, Kent. All right, here we go. Let's see what he's got.
Said and out of the way, let's get on with the video. The evidence for evolution comes from every branch of science that remotely interacts with organisms. This includes, to name but a few, anatomy, biology, embryology, genetics, neurobiology, and paleontology.
You see what I'm saying, Kent and Sam? He just names them all. He does a drive-by with all these different fields. That if we took them on one by one, no, we'd see that there is no evidence for large-scale evolution.
I'll be glad to debate him anytime. Call Holy what's his Holy Koolaid, and
Holy cool.
I'll be glad to debate him on your channel, my channel, his channel, any channel. Okay, he's blowing smoke is all he's doing. Just naming a bunch of branches of science is not evidence. Okay, he may believe each of those supports his religion, and he probably does, but they don't. I'll take any one of them on. Bring them on.
Is it a magic trick that he's doing? It's smokescreen. It's to confuse an uninformed audience to think, wow, we must be related to strawberries because he just named a bunch of fields of science and he said they all prove evolution.
Well, see, Hitler did the same thing. Get a big crowd of people together, hundreds of thousands of people crammed together. Heil Hitler, Hitler's great. Oh, wow, everybody believes it. It must be true.
Yeah.
No difference here. Holy Kool-Aid, no difference.
Okay, here we go. Very good points.
Which in turn includes every subfield of these sciences, such as anthropology, biogeography, chronological dating, comparative anatomy, fossils, molecular biology, and the list goes on and on.
I would say the list goes on and on and on with those fields, Kent, that actually disprove or refute evolution. So he's saying all those fields, they prove evolution. We would say the opposite. Actually, we could look at every single one of those fields or subject matters and find evidence against evolution. Isn't that right?
Exactly. All he's done here so far is show the world he is thoroughly brainwashed into believing his religion. He's not offered a shred of science. He's made a bunch of statements of dogma. That's not science. Where's the evidence of any animal producing offspring of a different kind? That a 5-year-old would say is a different kind. Where's the evidence? There's no evidence for that anywhere. Let him talk so he shuts his mouth.
And on. The point being here is that everything we objectively know about the natural world both supports and improves the theory of evolution by natural selection, whether we like it or not.
I don't like it.
This is 9 proofs of evolution, why evolution is true.
Real quick, I like that he says whether you like it or not. Okay, natural selection's a fine-tuning mechanism, right, Kat? Keeps a species as strong as it can be. It's not creating anything new.
I like the way he calls it evolution. It is.
Right,
it's evolution. Yeah.
He wants to be a prophet. He wants to be an apostle for his science fiction religion.
Well, he's making dogmatic statements, That's all he's doing. Everybody believes it. It's got to be true. We know it's true. No, you don't know any such thing. He's demonstrating it's a religious cult. That's exactly what he's demonstrating.
That's right.
Now, to present all of the evidence for evolution would take eons and would bore even Darwin, Dawkins, and Jay Gould. And so if you're really interested...
To present all the evidence against evolution would take eons. He's just making assertions. We can turn it right around on him. Isn't that right?
Well, that's okay. Tell any of the atheists listening or watching this later, pick the best 3. He says it'd take eons to even mention all of them. Okay, pick the best 3. The best 3. Call Donny, call me. We'll do a debate on my channel, your channel, Donny's channel. Give me the best 3 one at a time. We'll debunk any of them you've got. Any of them. There's no evidence whatsoever for evolution. You claim there's lots of it. Okay, bring the best 3.
Well said.
In reviewing all of the overwhelming evidence for evolution, then this video isn't it. What it is, however, is just 9 lines of evidence from several fields of study which by themselves alone make a very convincing case. So, where to begin? Well, the first 2 lines of evidence that I'm going to present both come from the comparative anatomy of whales to land mammals. We've long known that despite whales looking like fish, they're mammals, because just like mammals, and unlike fish, they give birth to life.
The idea of classifying them as fish and mammals is purely a man-made classification system We are putting our classification onto the animals. The animals don't know we're doing it and don't care that we're doing it. In the biblical classification system, maybe a whale's considered a fish if it lives in the water, but it just because Carol is linear, so we decided to call it a mammal because it has hair and bears live young and breathes oxygen, breathes air. Okay, the animals don't care how we classify them. You can have one person go into your shop and organize all your tools. Somebody else comes in, takes over. They might decide to organize them different.
Right.
So the tool doesn't care at all, and the whale doesn't care at all. So he thinks because there are similarities in these creatures, therefore they're related. This is such a stupid argument. Maybe there are similarities because the same guy designed them. Could be.
Amen. And God made a variety of designs, just like engineers make a variety of design as well. They seem to be making an argument where they think, well, if it's in the water, they all have to be identical. They all have to have the same similarities. When that's not the case, I think a good designer would allow for a great deal of variation in their designs.
Well, I know Honda makes a lot of different vehicles, and as far as I know, all of them have round tires. That's proof they're related to, bananas or something.
Airplanes have round tires.
Oh, they are related. You're right.
That's right.
Live young, feed their young milk via their mammary glands, breathe through 2 lungs rather than gills, have skin and hair rather than skin and scales, and they're warm-blooded. Now this alone strongly implies that they share a common ancestor with.
And then he takes that illogical leap. I mean, we could take a submarine on one side like he's doing here, which is in the water, and then take a cruise ship and list all the differences and similarities. Does that prove that they share a common ancestor, or is that good design? That's all he's doing here.
Well, they're going to argue cruise ships and submarines don't reproduce. Look, guys,
Right.
Adding reproduction into the mix makes it about 1 billion times more complicated and less likely to evolve. Not going to happen. No matter what analogy you give, rather than see it and think, oh, maybe they're right, they will look for a way to worm around it. They don't want to believe God did it because that involves some accountability. That's the whole problem here.
That's right.
I agree. Fish and whales have some similarities. I agree they have some differences. And man has decided to put them in a different category. They don't care. They can't interbreed. Well, the shark can't interbreed with lots of other fish either. So what? The genetic code is phenomenal. So with all 9, I've seen this video before, all 9 evidences he gives, I'll easily debunk if you would like, but it would take a while to do each one. But his first one, the fact that they have similarities is evidence they're related. That's a stupid argument. It's just as much evidence they had the common designer.
And he doesn't even realize it, Kent, but he's about to refute his next argument because he's about to say, well, whales and sharks, they're both water creatures. They're both in the water. They live in the water. And so how come they're not more similar genetically? And he's going to bring in a hippo, but he's refuting himself here because he's showing in these 2 lists of their differences, he's showing how whales and fish, although in the water, they diverge significantly at the physiological level. So yeah, we'd expect some differences, therefore, in the genetics.
Of land mammals. But what really makes this suggestion even more compelling, and what I'll offer as a first line of evidence, is the curious bone structure of their flippers. Within their flippers, whales have, just like the forelimbs of land mammals, finger, hand, wrist, and arm bones, which can be easily explained if these bones are repurposed forelimbs, but are remarkably hard to explain if they're not.
Notice he said repurposed forelimbs, repurposed from a land-dwelling mammal that evolved into an aquatic mammal like a whale. Kat, what's a good response to that?
How can you possibly know it's repurposed? It works great just as it is. It looks to me like it was designed to do what it does. Maybe it hasn't ever been changed. How do you know one turned to the other? You can't go back in time. We see whales today always produce baby whales. There are no exceptions. Sharks always make baby sharks. No exceptions. Why? See, they have to go back in time with their imaginary, SpongeBob, magic carpet and fly back in time.
Right. That's their god.
That's all it is SpongeBob imagination. Nothing else.
A military submarine looks a lot like a jumbo jet, 747. and they both have wings. The jet has bigger wings, but so does the A-Team van. Has a little spoiler on the back.
Right.
They all look the same.
Wow, that's right. That is proof of something to somebody somewhere.
Right.
They're repurposed.
Oh yeah.
From a
Repurposed.
common ancestor. And what's interesting, Kent, you nailed it, because the flippers in the whale help to steer, balance, and stop the whale as it moves around through.
Right.
And these bones in the whale actually make the flippers really effective paddles for swimming. So I see amazing design, not evolution here.
Yeah, it is designed. I think the whales like it just like it. They wouldn't want you to change anything.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think they like the way their flippers are designed. Helps them in the water.
As after all, these bones have very little in common with non-mammalian fins, and yet a great deal in common with the forelimbs of land mammals. Furthermore, and to invoke a second line of evidence, whales have strange bones that look like shriveled hip, thigh, and shin bones where land mammals have hind legs. And some of these bones, such as these from a bonehead whale, even have what appears to be a ball and socket joint. Further still, paleontologists have found numerous...
Well, Kent, there's one of your favorites, the so-called vestigial pelvis. That is supposed to be a vestigial remnant of when it walked on land. What's a good response?
This is extremely stupid, holy vodka or Kool-Aid. These bones that are they're part of the whale's reproductive system. It's never was legs, okay? Some big snakes have the same thing. They have bones inside that with little claws. This is allow them to mate. Whales have to mate underwater in the dark with no arms, and they can't talk and say, "Scoot over, honey." They have to have a method of maneuvering their reproductive parts around, and they have special bones and special muscles to do that. This is a lie. You are telling a lie, holy Kool-Aid. A bold face. Either you're ignorant of your whale anatomy, which I suspect you are, or you're lying. This is not evidence for evolution. Someone can have a 15-foot penis to maneuver around in the dark, underwater. This is not evidence for evolution. It's evidence that God designed them to make baby whales. Duh.
Well said. And Kent, as you've shown, this is demonstrated to be false from their own scientific literature on the so-called whale vestigial pelvis. Here's an excerpt from an article. Whale sex. It's all in the hips. New research turns a long accepted evolutionary assumption, on its head, finding that far from being just vestigial, whale pelvic bones play a key role in what? Reproduction. Just like you. That's right from their literature, right from their own mouths.
Whoops.
Oopsies. Here we go.
species within the fossil record that have unique similarities with whales, but also varying sizes of hind legs. Now, once again, these bones make perfect sense if they're vestigial and or repurposed. But
Wait a minute,
actually, Kent, like you said, it makes perfect sense for reproduction to have more whale babies,
Yeah.
right?
And the fact that he's lining up a bunch of different skeletons in some kind of order that he thinks they happen, nobody saw any of these change to anything else. When they find there's no such thing as a fossil record, holy Kool-Aid. Okay, there are fossils, trillions of them, but there's no such thing as a record. We have a lot of fossils in our museum here at Dinosaur Adventureland in Lenox, Alabama. Come on down, pay us a visit. We can show you all the fossils. I promise you, you pick any one of our fossils out of our museum. You will notice two things immediately. None of them talk, and none of them have a date stamped on them. And all you could really prove with a fossil is it died. You could not prove it had any children. You could not prove it had any children that lived. You could not prove it had any children that lived and were different. You have to imagine all three of those. And then if it did have a baby that was different, who's that baby going to marry? You got to get two of the opposite sex in the same place. It's a big world, you know, and at the same time, in all those billions of years. What if the male evolved first and the female evolved 2,000 miles away 400 years later? Oh, we got to start over again. They have a wild, I admire their faith. I really do. I do not admire, not their intelligence or their science, but I admire their faith.
Right. They're very passionate about their science fiction
yeah.
religion. They hope, dream, and imagine. I've heard you point out you could line things up all day and they don't prove anything. You could take a unicycle, a bicycle and a four-wheeler and then predict, there must be something with three wheels out there. And then lo and behold, you find a three-wheeler, put it right into the middle of those three vehicles, and boom, you have a transitional form. But really, it's not proving anything.
Nothing at all.
But they're very peculiar if they're not. Talking of vestigial traits, and to present a third line of evidence, a superb example can be found in all mammals, including you, and it's called the left recurrent laryngeal nerve. Without getting too technical, this nerve runs from the brain to the voice box, which should be a distance of a few inches. But instead, it goes down into the chest, loops around the main artery, and then goes back up to the voice box, which in the case of the giraffe results in a 15-foot detour.
Interesting. I did a show recently with Jerry Bergman, who studied this, and he went over at least 4 different reasons why this is great design, and why instead of going right to its goal, it takes a different route, because the signal for the nerve can't get there too early or too late. It has to get there and arrive just on time for its function to work. So this is not bad design, Kent.
It's amazing design. Yeah.
Yeah.
And plus, during development, it's very essential that it go this way. And maybe that's why the Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart. There's a big connection. I did a program about 6 months ago here on our channel, Genesis Baptist Church, about all the different Bible verses about how you can think with your heart. Your brain is part of your thinking process, obviously, but also the heart is involved in this. There's a lot of stuff in the scientific literature about that. They've had people who have heart transplants, and the recipient remembers things of the other person's life. So this is not evidence for evolution. This is evidence of an amazing design.
Let's just assume what they're saying is true about bad design. Does bad design mean no designer? I mean, I've seen some pretty horrible designs coming out of manufacturing companies, but that doesn't mean nobody didn't make whatever that car or vehicle or design is.
Well, Charlie Darwin said that the eye, to say it could form by natural selection seems absurd, and he was right. The back of your eye, 1 square inch, 137 million light-sensitive cells, all connected to the brain. It's designed. Here's bad design. I say that's a bad design. What do you think? Stairways that go to nothing. How's that for a bad design? Wash machine had to go through the wall. Now that's kind of a bad design. What do you think?
That's a bad design.
I'd say that's a bad design. Does that mean nobody designed it? No, it's just a bad design. How's that for a bathroom? The walls don't go up to the roof. You want to go potty in there? How's that? Toilet paper right in front. Is that a bad design?
It's handy.
How about this? Coffee cup where it pokes you in the eye every time you take a drink. Now there you go. There's a good design. Bad design does not mean no designer. It might mean a stupid designer, but I don't know of any examples of bad design in nature. Even if there were some, it wouldn't help the evolution theory. But I think if you look at anything in nature, anything natural, plant world, animal world, insect world, it's stunning in its design. One single cell of your body is more complex than the space shuttle. It cannot have happened by chance. You atheists need to wake up and give it up and surrender. There's a God. He made the world, whether you like it or not, and he's going to be your judge one day, whether you like it or not. And your knee shall bow and your tongue shall confess to Jesus Christ that he's the Lord and Savior. Promise you it'll happen. I promise.
I think even those in the context of bad design, I'm not even sure that they could defend something like that without full knowledge of the intent of the designer and the thing in question. And I'm not sure that they can, justify saying that they have those things. And it also fails to acknowledge that, as Christians, we understand that we are all under the curse of the fall of mankind. There's things like entropy that are also going to affect what at one time was a perfect design. I've got a lot of stuff that was great when it was new, but it no longer works. And that doesn't mean that it was a bad design. It just means that it's worn out, broke down, just like, I'm getting here.
Amen. I understand that real well, bro.
Entropy. We're all breaking down. Okay. Well, you know what? We gave vodka rules. Is that what you're calling them?
Holy something. Yeah,
holy vodka, holy Koolaid.
Yeah.
So
He
we
drank.
gave him over 4 minutes to prove evolution, and he failed in that 4 minutes. Clearly, we'll continue responding to him.